Hello all. We're going to be working on chapter 7. This is our first day of notes, so we're going to take some notes over ratios and proportions. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. So I'm going to write that here. It's a comparison of two quantities by division. And those quantities sometimes look like 5 to 1, like they would have in a recipe, or 3 to 2, but we can also rewrite these as fractions. 5 to 1 and 3 to 2 is 5 over 1 and 3 over 2. We're going to be using these with proportions. So in front of us we have a proportion. It's going to be an equation that states that two ratios are equal. So an equation states two ratios are equal. And you can see that we have proportional evidence or equivalence down below. And we're going to do some modifications. We're not going to do anything vastly mathematical with this today. This is a very useful tool for many things: cooking, understanding size and shape, also determining things are similar or not. But for right now, we're going to look at proportional equivalence, and we're going to look at the properties of proportions. So if A over B is equal to C over D, then we can flip each fractions, and we can say if B over A, then that should be equivalent to D over C. They should be the same. And we're going to verify with cross multiplication with these proportions and see whether or not this is actually true, which it should be. As we can see in the first one, A and C are actually related, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to say A to C should also be equal to B to D. Kind of related. And then I'm going to go back to the first one and have A over some kind of B, but I'm going to add the B on top. And I'm going to set it equal to C over D, but I'm going to do the same proportion, and I'm going to set it equal, or add the D to the C. We're going to see if this all works, but we're going to utilize cross multiplication, and this is the most important thing to realize today, is cross multiplication can only occur when we have an equal sign and two proportions. So we're going to cross multiply the corners, so A times D, and we're also going to take B times C. That is our cross multiplication. So if we do this correctly, I should have A times D will be equal to B times C. That's all we're doing with cross multiplication. We're going to do more examples of this, and I know algebraically with letters it doesn't make the best sense, but let's try it again. Let's do the same thing. A times D, so that hasn't changed at all. A times D will be equal to B times C. So same exact thing. We haven't changed anything. So this is good, because this should be a proportional equivalence. Nothing should be different. Again, A times D, same thing occurs. A times D is equal to B times C. B times C, and I'll highlight that one so you guys can see it. Boom. Okay, the last one is a little trickier. We're going to have to do a little bit more work, so I'm going to do it on the side. I'm going to have AB times D, and I'm going to write that over here. A plus B times D. And you can see that I rewrote it as distribution because A plus B is a single number. Okay, that being said, I now have B times C plus D. So again, I will have B times C plus D. With both of these, I'm going to have to use distribution. And distribution is just multiplication over addition or subtraction. And so we should end up with this. AD plus BD will be equal to BC plus BD. And if you notice something here, which I hope you guys do, is both of these sides have a BD. And again, algebraically, these are just numbers, so we are going to treat them as numbers and subtract them from both sides. That's our whole goal here. So I now have just a single AD will be equal to just BC. So each one of these proportions was equivalent. They are the same because they all equal AD and BC. So the conclusion here is two ratios that are equal can be written into multiple equalities. Or if A over B is equal to C over D, then AD equals BC. These are the statements that we're having to write, and we're gonna utilize what we just wrote, and we're gonna do the same exact things using this proportion up here. We're just gonna rewrite. That's all we're gonna do with this exercise. So if I have x over 5 here is equal to y over 6, well, if I flip it, then 5 over x is equal to 6 over y. All right, for B, I have related, in this situation, 6 to 5. So if it's 6 to 5, then it should be y to x. Okay, well, we can play the same game if we have a relation between x and y, so it's x to y, and those two are related. And so now we're going to have, if it's x to y, we're going to have 5 to 6. The last one is where they actually cross multiply. You can see it here. This is 6 times x is 6x, so that must be equal to 5y. Alright, so example 1 is finished here. We're now moving on to examples 2 and 3. For examples 2 and 3, we're just going to use our cross multiplication to solve the proportions. So in this circumstance, we have x times 8, which is 8x, is equal to 6 times 4, which is 24. I want to solve for just a single x, not 8 of them, so I need to divide both sides by 8. And by doing that, I should end up with x is equal to 3. So we're going to do the same motions on number 3, but we are going to cross multiply m plus 1 times 3, and that's going to be equal to 15 times m. And I'm going to rewrite that. I'm going to rewrite this one step by step because it's really, really important to note that m plus 1 is a single number and it needs to be in parentheses. And if it's not, then we're going to end up having a large mistake of not using distribution. So this is our first step. When rewritten, we have 3 times the quantity of m plus 1, and we are going to distribute this 3 into the m plus 1. So we should end up with 3m plus 3 is equal to 15m. Now, our next step here is to realize that we want to get m's all by themselves. And we already have 15 m's on the right side, so I'm going to get rid of the 3 m's on the left side and put them on the right side. And I'm just going to balance my equation like I have in the past. Nothing has really changed. There are no more m's on the left-hand side, but it is equal to 12 m's on the right. Now this is where most people are going to make their mistake because they want to not solve for m's. They want to get rid of the 3 for some reason, but we are solving for m, so we need to get rid of the 12. And the way that 12 is attached is by multiplication, so we need to divide both sides by 12. Now here is a key feature in this, is if we have a little number divided by a big number, it's going to make a tiny number. So we cannot have this turning out to be 4. This is going to be reduced to 1 over 4, or a quarter, is equal to m, because 3 over 12 is 1 quarter. They are equivalent ratios. All right. Make sure you pause there if you need to look at that and analyze it again. Okay, our last example here is we're going to use proportions to solve word problems. We have a local co-ed softball league, and the male to female ratio is 3 to 4. If there are 160 female players in the league, how many are male? Well, let's set up our ratio first. 3 to 4 can be rewritten as 3 over 4. And we're going to set it equal to some things, but what we need to realize is it's male to female. So the top is male and the bottom is female. In this softball league, there are more females than there are males, which is perfectly fine. But we are given another number, of 160 female players. So that has to relate to the 4. So it sits across from the 4. So the 4 relates to the 160. Now, in this circumstance here, we are looking for the males. So we need to have a variable that substitutes. In this case, I'm going to use M for males because we don't know how many are in this league. But now, with that variable, that unknown, we can use cross multiplication to its fullest, and we can cross multiply and solve. So that's what I'm going to do. 4 times M is 4M, and that is equal to 3 times 160, which is going to be 480. Since I'm solving for the number of males in this circumstance, I need to divide both sides by 4 because I want 1M. And when I do that, I am going to end up with the males of this group is going to be equal to 120. So there are 120 males to 160 females in this entire league. Now, if you run into any other problems, please let me know. You can always send me an email. And our assignment for today is going to be page 436. It is posted on Schoology. Please let me know if you have any more questions. Thank you.